So for this section of the training called Practical Intuition, what we're going to learn is we're going to explore the role of the heart in enhancing the intuition. As a matter of fact, we're going to discuss 3 different types of intuition, and I will introduce you to a very practical technique in order for you to learn how to access this intuition in a more practical way. But first of all, let's understand why is this important. As you know, given the increased complexity and speed of today's world, this kind of skills or abilities might help you to address these new situations that we're facing right now. As a matter of fact, I would like to share some research in terms of intuition in order for you to get a little bit more clear in what intuition is. As you know, the repeat entrepreneurs are very well known for what? For creating new ideas, for creating new business opportunities, and there have been several universities around the world that have been curious in understanding why this happened in successful entrepreneurs. Why is it that entrepreneurs become successful? So there's a university in Australia that was interested in this and drive a research in order to understand what are the key successful characteristics of entrepreneurs that we see nowadays. The results were very interesting. What they discovered, what they found out, is that entrepreneurs reported 80% of them that they rely on intuition while making important business decisions. And you know what? There's something even more important. They all said that they felt appreciation to the people that helped them in this path of becoming successful. And after feeling this deep appreciation, what they wanted to do is to give back to the community. So knowing this makes us think, what is the role of intuition in terms of successful decisions in our world? And in order to understand this, let's take a look to some important entrepreneurs in the world that have known this maybe for some years now. One of them is the well-known Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, in one of his conferences in Stanford, talked about the courage to follow your heart. As you know, Steve Jobs is a very well-known, successful entrepreneur. And in his quote, he said exactly what we're going to read here. Don't let others drown out your own inner voice. Have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. So in a way, he knew the importance of being connected with your heart and your intuition in order to be successful. Now, there's another very important entrepreneur called David Strauss. As you know, he's the CEO of Recent Ventures, and he writes in Inc. magazine. In one of his quotes, he explains what the aha moment is. And he quoted exactly this. The aha moment emanates from the heart and is fueled by its intuition. True visionary leaderships develops inside the heart, not the brain. And it is there for each of us to grasp. We simply need the awareness of how to access it. So intuition is something that people have been knowing for some time now. And it's important nowadays to really understand what are those types of intuition in order for you to differentiate each one of them, and the most important thing, know how to access these types of intuition in a more simple way, such as these successful people all around the world. So as I told you at the beginning of this section, what we're going to understand today is intuition. And now I'm going to go deep into these 3 types of intuition. the three types of intuitions that we're going to study are called implicit knowledge, energetic sensitivity, and non-local intuition. Now, let's start with the first one, implicit knowledge. This kind of intuition, it's the most common, and it has been researched for some time now. This intuition refers to something that we have learned in the past, but that we didn't realize that we knew. And all of a sudden, when you face a challenge or a problem, you might try for a couple of days to find a solution for the problem. And after a while, you just give up because you didn't come up with a solution. But the brain didn't give up. The brain usually sticks with this idea. And after 2 days, when you just left the idea out, all of a sudden, the solution comes to you. It's called implicit knowledge because it's something that you already knew, but you didn't realize that you have learned this information, and you know, or your brain knows exactly when it's the time to address this information. Now, the second kind or type, of intuition, it's called energetic sensitivity. As the term says, it has to do with your ability to perceive the environmental signals. Some people have this ability to perceive the electromagnetic frequencies of the earth. And perceiving these environmental signals, they can predict or know that something is about to happen. There are people, for example, that can perceive this electromagnetic field frequencies even 2 weeks before an earthquake is about to happen. There are other people that can even perceive it 1 or 2 hours before this event takes place. As you already know, there are some animals that are recognized for knowing these kinds of things. Another example of this kind of intuition, energetic sensitivity, is when you can perceive that someone is staring at you. You don't even know why, but there are studies right now that show that this type of intuition is real. You can perceive this environmental signal and you know that someone in that moment is staring at you. That's why it's called energetic sensitivity. Now, the third type of intuition, which is the one that I'm going to focus a little bit more during this section, is called non-local intuition. The non-local intuition, it's not what it cannot be explained with knowledge that you have known in the past, and it cannot be explained with perceiving environmental signals. This type of intuition, it's really important because it has to do with future events that people just know that might happen. For example, parents that live very far away from their children, and they simply just know by heart that something is wrong and that their children or their son or daughter is in danger. Another good example of this is when a person is thinking about someone that haven't seen in a long time, and after thinking about him or her, all of a sudden the phone rings and it's this person calling. It's like if they could perceive in advance something that's going to happen in the future. This is something that's been really interesting for a lot of people, and they have been trying to understand what's going on with this type of non-local intuition. Now, by telling you these examples, and before we go deep into this kind of intuition, what kind of non-local intuition you think that you have experienced? Can you think of any example that you might now know that it's called non-local intuition? Yes? Yes, correct. That time where you were at home and you just felt that something is wrong with your kid, and they call from school telling you that he fell and he's injured. That's a very, very good example. Perhaps you didn't know that it's called non-local intuition and you just knew that you knew. But now there's enough research, a number of rigorous research studies that have discovered how to measure and demonstrate that this non-local intuition really exists. And that's what we're going to be talking about. As a matter of fact, the Harvard Research Center and other researchers have conducted several fascinating research in terms of non-local intuition. What they did is they wanted to study in this research and measure how are their brain waves, how is their heart activity, how is their skin conductance, and other electrophysiology measures that might be able to explain how this non-local intuition works. And in order for you to understand this research, I'm going to go through some key points of this research and the findings that they got at the end. For this research, what they did is that they picked 26 adults that already sustained coherence in some kind of way, and they were selected for this study. Now, half of them were asked to practice the heart locked in technique 10 minutes prior to the protocol, and the other half didn't practice anything at all before the protocol. Now, what the protocol was going to be about? Well, the research consists in sitting every person in front of a computer, and the computer will randomly choose one picture at the time. Now, there were two types of pictures. They had some pictures that evoke negative emotions and some pictures that evoke positive emotions. So what they want to do is that they connected these people to some instruments to be able to read what was the response in terms of brain waves, heart activity, and skin conductance when they were in front of this picture. Now, the results were amazing. They showed that both the heart and the brain responded to the information about the emotion quality of the picture before the computer randomly selected the picture. This means that the heart and the brain reacted even before the picture was placed or randomly picked by the computer in front of them. The important thing here is that the heart and the brain appeared to be responding to a future event before this event even happened. As a matter of fact, after they finished the research, they found out that it was about 6 seconds before the computer randomly picked this picture that the heart and the brain received or responded to this signal. Now, there was something even more important. The heart responded even before the brain. So the heart responded first emotionally to this picture and sent the signal to the prefrontal cortex in order for the brain to know what this sign or this neural signal was. After that, then the prefrontal cortex sent down the body the signal so that the body could have a feeling of what they were experiencing. And this is what we usually call gut feeling. And it started with the heart response and then connected to the brain. So the important finding of this research is that depending on the emotion quality of the future picture, the heart sent a different pattern of neural signals to the brain even before there was a pre-stimulus response anywhere in the brain. The heart is the first to know. Now, another interesting thing in this research was that, do you remember that I told you there were two different groups? Well, the group that worked on the heart locked in technique before the protocol, 10 minutes before the protocol, responded with a stronger signal from the heart than the ones that didn't. What does it mean? What does this tell us? Well, that when people or participants are in a more coherent state at the start of this experiment, they were more attuned to the intuitive information from the heart. So you're more open to receive, to have this intuition if you're in a coherent heart state. And this is very important in order for us to know how to access this type of intuition. So as you can see, this information is really interesting, right? This research gave us a lot of information. As a matter of fact, this non-local intuition research has the following findings. It's important for us to understand that with this research, we can say that sometimes if a future event is emotionally relevant for you, then the heart produces a neural signal that pre-alerts you before the event takes place. This means that if someone that you care or someone that's important for you is in danger, this is an emotional relevant event that could happen in the future, and you might have the possibility to be pre-alert by the heart that produce a neural signal to the brain. This explains why some parents know if their children are, or their child is in distress. Now, this person that had this intuition with his child doesn't necessarily gonna have the same intuition with someone that he doesn't or she doesn't know. This works when the future event is emotionally relevant for you in some way. So the studies consistently show that changes in your heart activity are the best physiological indicator of a future adverse event. As a matter of fact, this intuitive intelligence reacts faster than the mind and can perceive and bypasses normal thought processes. Amazing, right? So being in a heart coherent states, it helps to be more open to this information, and you can even for a couple of minutes receive this pre-alert sign in order to be alert of something that's about to happen. And this really happens very frequently. As a matter of fact, I would like to ask you all, what is an example that you have experienced that might illustrate something like that, now that we know what non-local intuition is? Yes? You're right, there you go. Sometimes policemen just all of a sudden know when they're chasing someone that they should go left instead of right, because something tells them it's a future event that's emotionally relevant, and something tells them that that's the way they should go. How many of you have gone in a certain speed through a road and all of a sudden you just feel that you have to turn around, or you just feel that you have to slow down, and all of a sudden you discover that there had been an accident or that there was a child that was about to cross the street? It's like if something tell you in a subtle way that something is about to happen in order for you to take some kind of decision. So this kind of research let us know the importance of the non-local intuition. And given these findings of the heart, it's easier for us to understand why all these cultures and spiritual leaders for so many time ago have been talking about the human heart is the source of intuition and wisdom, and the importance of listening to your heart. So understanding this lead us to a lot of benefits, don't you think? What do you think are the benefits of understanding this and working on this in order to be more intuitive? What do you think can be a benefit of being more intuitive and accessing this intuitive intelligence? Yes, you're right. You can prevent something. you're right. You can be more conscious. Yeah, it could be one. More aware. Yes, there are a lot of benefits of intuition, and we're gonna talk about them right now. Sometimes we take intuition for granted. It's so natural that we just think it's there, and we take it for granted, but we don't really pay attention. So if we could have this intelligence more available for us, and we could be more aware of how to access this kind of intelligence, maybe we could have a lot of benefits that we might not even know about right now. One of the benefits is accessing your deeper wisdom and intelligence for making better choices that align you with your deeper values. Sometimes we're so in this automatic mode that we really are not that aware of our deeper wisdom. So if we access this kind of intuition, we can access this deeper wisdom and intelligence and make the correct choices, as Steve Jobs or a lot of very well-known entrepreneurs said that they had used. Another very important benefit is enhancing creativity for new insights and out-of-the-box solutions. We talk about how important it is for us to see new possibilities, and sometimes we're so stuck in the problem that we don't perceive or connect with this intelligence, with this intuitive intelligence. So when you access to this kind of intuition, you have more creativity, and you have the possibility of having new insights and out-of-the-box ideas. Unfolding your true potential because you're connected with your deeper wisdom, and you can unfold something that you didn't know about yourself. You interact more harmoniously with others, of course, because you're in a more coherent state that allows you to perceive the world in a different way. And you become more aware and you become more aware of and taking charge of unnecessarily energy expenditures. We talked at the beginning of this training the importance of the energy drains and how these emotional states might be draining a lot of energy from us. So if we access this intuition, we have more possibilities to become more aware and taking charge of these unnecessary energy expenditures. So I think all of these benefits are really good and will help a lot of in a different environments to all of us here, right? Don't you think? Yeah, I think that too. Now, as I told you, in order to access to this intuitive intelligence, there are ways that you can begin to practice. So there are two important keys that you must have in mind to access to this intuition. These two keys are mentioned here. You can learn to have more frequently access to this intuitive intelligence, the inner sense of knowing, in order to make intelligent choices if you keep these two keys in mind. What's the first one? Look, as the research showed, remember, the first step is increasing the frequency of accessing your intuition. How? Shifting into a coherent state, to a quiet mental chatter and emotional unrest. As you remember in the research, this half of the people that work on this heart coherence technique, heart locked in technique, were more open to this intuitive intelligence and sent a stronger signal. So a key to access your intuition is, of course, to shift to a coherent state, to a quiet mental chatter, in order for your emotional being to rest. And the second key is to pay attention to your intuitive feelings and perceptions. As I said, if you're not paying attention, then you might be in an automatic pilot and you won't be able to listen to this intuitive intelligence that is within you. So we can learn to more frequently access our intuitive intelligence and inner sense of knowing and make more intelligent choices moment by moment if we take care of these two key points. interesting, right? Now it's even more interesting what I'm about to ask. What would you think if I tell you that you can learn to access this intuitive intelligence more often? If there's a way that you can practice and learn to be more intuitive. Not only to have these 2 key points in mind, but to really practice and learn how to become more intuitive. Would you be interested? Interested, sorry? Does that sound good? I thought you would say yes. And yes, it is. Thanks to this research, there's now a lot of information and we know how to access to this intuitive intelligence. As a matter of fact, as I told you at the beginning of this section, I was going to introduce you to a technique that will allow for you to be more intuitive. And this technique is called the freeze frame technique.